Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Nanoxia Deep Silent Case. Now for those of you that are a bit like, ooh, Nanoxia, they're kind of famed really. I remember a few years back when I first got into computing, they released a range of quite good fans, and they were like, they had a smoked frame and then really kind of lime green see-through fan blades. And pretty much anyone that had a green rig at that point in time had those fans in it, but they're expanding into case design now. Now the case has been out a few months, but I waited for the white version to come out before I wanted to jump on and take a look. I have to say straight off the bat, I mean, we're not even really into the review yet, it's very kind of Fractal-esque, which was another reason I went for the white one, because obviously I've done the R3 and the R4 white. And white can be quite a difficult colour to match with plastic, and also you need to make sure that you have a good finish on the powder coat as well. So it's something that I'm fairly kind of familiar with these kind of things to look for, so it's all good. But anyway, so the white one is slightly more expensive than the black one. It's £100, whereas the black version, and then they also do, it's basically black, but then they have a gunmetal grey side, I'm looking on the screen at the moment, and a gunmetal grey front and a silver front on these bits. Those three versions are only £90 or $89.99, and that's been taken straight from the Quiet PC website, which is where the case comes from. Anyway, right, what I'll do is I will bring you in for a closer look, and we'll do the normal kind of run around the case and all the features and everything, and then, you know, into a conclusion right at the very end, as we always do, normal kind of TTL case review layout. So get yourself comfy, I'll move the camera and bring you in for a closer look. Right then, we're all on an angle today, but never mind, it'll keep us busy. Keep us busy. Well, anyway, at the very top of the case, you can see here that there's a power button. There's the power LED ring around it as well. Further back from the case, we push this flap, it's meant to spring right up like that, and then it exposes two USBs, two USB 3s, there's an internal header for that, and then your headphone and your microphone. Now I've already had a look at this because mine literally doesn't bounce up, and it's because my spring seems to have been stretched too much. It's not got the pull to come down. You could move the spring down a couple of clips if you wanted, but I don't know whether they've all come out like this, but that's as far as it goes up, and then you have to kind of give it a pull to get the rest. I think if you did get one like this, you could literally pull the spring in a couple of notches and you'd probably be fine. But once you've got a USB stick or something in there, it's not going to go anywhere. As you can see, once you pull it up, it doesn't go back down anyway, so it's not too much of an issue. Now, if we push that back down and latch it as well, if I bring you back a little bit, at the back of the case up here, you can see that there's a little slider. Now, if you push that slider, and this is the reason why I've got the case on an angle, ta-da! You have like a chimney area up here, and it kind of like raises the roof a bit so you can have some ventilation for the roof. Now the good thing with this is, if you turn your rig off for long periods of time and you're worried about dust or anything like that, you can close it off. If you don't have fans or in the roof or anything like that anyway, you can leave it closed off. But then on hot days, or when you turn it on and you've got fans up there or whatever, you can just press this little slider and it's all done. And also in the top of this underneath, there is a layer of bitumen sound deadening, which is on the side panels, as I'll show you in a minute anyway. So there is sound deadening up there as well. Now it does get a little bit complicated with the roof, which we'll have to talk about later on. But you can't put fans up. You've got like the internal section of the roof, and then you've got this outside area, which is what I like to call like a bit of a body kit, which is the easiest way to explain it. You've got like a body kit up here. Now you can't put fans underneath this shroud area, because there's two support bars which help lift it up. You can put the fans underneath inside the case part if you want, but not up here. But I'll talk to you more about that in a little minute. Now, what I do need to do now is I move you back down. Right, so the front section of the case. There's two separate like doors. Now the top one if we open that up, we can see that we've got 3 optical bay covers here. You can also see that there's some sound deadening foam in the door. Now the optical bay covers are toolless removal, but they've also got some fan filtering behind there as well, or dust filtering I should say. There's 2 fan controllers at the top, and they're 2 independent fan controllers. And then over here we've got a reset switch. So that's that bit. If we move down a little bit more, in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the old camera back a little bit so that you can get a better view of this. There we go. Right. So if I come down here, we've got a door, and it's a much larger door. Again, there's dust filtering behind it, as you can see here. But then you can also see that we've got more dust filters on the inside. Now these dust filters, you can see, do slide. But obviously with the front on, there's nothing you can do with it. But what you have to do is, if you pull the front off, which is quite simple, I've got all the cables tucked up so we can do it. You can see it exposes the dust filters here. Now the dust filters do just slide off. You can obviously then hoover them or wash them out, or whatever you want. And that's the same with both of them. There are 220mm fans fitted. Now also, if you push the fan section, you can see it slides out. And the fan in the back is toolless. You can literally just clip it, unclip them, and obviously it's, there we go, and you can remove the fan. But it's the same to put them back in again. Just give them a little bit of a push, and it's all cable routed and everything as well. Now later on, when we talk about what's going on inside, you can either have the fans clipped on here as you want, or you can obviously have them clipped on the other side if you remove the half dry rack, which we'll talk about in a bit. That's more when we get to like the water cooling side of things. But that's the top fan, and the bottom fan is set up like that. Now I've got the cable pulled a bit tight on this one, it's a bit caught up, but they do both open fine. So slide the old dust filters back in. Now to fit the front panel, obviously if you had all these cables attached in your case, it would be a lot more difficult to fit the front panel. I've purposely not fitted them to make it easier for me, but you're not going to want to take the front off too often, not often enough that unpopping a few cables wouldn't be too much of an issue. If they were connected, you could still probably get the front off and kind of lever it around like a door anyway, so you wouldn't really have too much of a problem. Now also, because of the fans, as you can see that the door closes and it blocks the fans up. Now on both sides you can see that there are some air vents, and that's how the air gets in to feed those 2 front fans. So you've not really got to worry too much about airflow. It's not the most free-flowing design in the world, but this is meant to be designed to be like a kind of silent case rather than a super high airflow performance case. Now what I need to do now is shift the case around a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Right then, so onto the side. We've got a blank here, which if I remove the side panel, you can see that it's a plastic blank on the rest of the glossy white powder coated side. Now I've got to admit the plastic is more of like a textured kind of satin affair, whereas the case is quite a glossy white, and I don't think the plastic and the powder coat matches that well. I mean, you can see on the camera that it's quite a different colour and finish by the way that, you know, no reflection there, lots of reflection there, at least from the angle that I'm looking at anyway. So that's a little bit disappointing. I think they should have made the plastic slightly more glossy to have kind of matched in better. But if we flip the side round, you can see that we've got a 140mm sized fan mount there, but obviously with the mounts for 120s as well. It's got a dust filter, and the plate on the other side of the panel is held in by the screws that's held in, so it's like sandwiching the 2 together. So to remove this, you basically undo those screws and it takes that off. And I would assume that you put the exact same screws back through for a fan or whatever. But anyway, also on the back, as you can see, we've got a lovely thick bitumen sound deadening on the side. Now I have to say that sound deadening, I've looked, is is near as damn it, as close as I can possibly get, identical to the Fractal stuff. Now I don't know whether this is made in the same factory or anything like that. It's definitely going to be something I'm going to have to look into, but it's bitumen exactly the same as Fractal. Really does give a really solid weight to the side panels like Fractal, and even the cloth coating on the top of the bitumen is exactly the same as Fractal. But anyway, so really it's a bloody good quality sound deadening, because we like the Fractal sound deadening. Now, in fact, I'll leave the side panel off for now. What we will do is look at the back, because I've just pulled it off because I didn't have fan speed screws on it, or panel screws on it. Exactly the same all across the back on the back panel. The funny thing is if you look carefully, can you see the line here? Basically, it's exactly the same sound deadening sheet that they would have used on the other side, but they've put the black square in to cover up the gap where you would have had the fan filter before. So it doesn't take anything away from it. It's just an observation that it does use the exact same panel as the other side. Now, going round to the back of the case, power supply in the bottom, has the mounts there so you can have your power supply either way, because obviously all the educated people out there know it doesn't matter which way you have your power supply turned round. If you did want it facing downwards, then there is a dust filter there for you, but if you wanted it facing inwards, as I do, you don't need to worry about a dust filter because it's already dust filtered before it gets into the case. And that's why you can have it, you know, turned both ways, but we've got ours facing up in there at this present moment in time. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so 7 plus 1 PCIe slots at the back. Couple of water cooling cable grommets, and there's a couple of other cable grommets up the top here. I've actually pushed this one out already with my hand. It was when I turned the case around, I stuck my thumb right the way through the back of the case and pushed it through, but that's my fault, not the case's. And you can also say at the back of the case we've got a mount for a 140mm fan, which is fitted. So to clarify, there are 220mm front intakes and 140mm rear exhaust fitted in the case, and they are Nanoxia branded green bladed fans as well. And that's pretty much it from the back, apart from this cutout up here is so that you can remove the roof. But we will spin round. Now, back of the case, there is actually a fair bit of cable routing, but you're looking at probably 17 or 18mm of cable room around the back. Now, we've obviously not got a lot in here because we've just got like a quick demo system in here, and you can see that the fan cables here that are that come with the case are all cable braided, which is one of the reasons why I've not got them connected up for the review. It was so that I could point out that even the fans in the case come braided, which is quite a nice touch. One at the top here as well. They're all quite tidy as well. Now, cable grommets, or rather room around the back, you can see that we've got a nice CPU cutout area. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zip tie clip, so that you, if you wanted to, you can zip tie and pull all your cables in nice and tight and everything. So that's all quite nice. Also round here you can see the hard drive bays here. You access them from the other side. But the bit that I really wanted to point out is you've got a fair amount of room back here for your hard drive cables, should you want to fill these up with, you know, hard drives. What else would you want to fill them up with? But anyway, there's a fair amount of room back here for cables, which is also quite a nice touch. So if I spin the old case round, right. So, first things first, as we were talking about hard drives, I will continue with hard drives towards the front of the case. Now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hard drive bays in the front. And by that I mean 3.5-inch mechanical bays in the front of the case. These are obviously being fed by the 220mm fans in the very front of the case. Now these hard drive bays, I have to put my hand around the back because there's a clip. Now I lift the clip up and then I can pull the hard drive bay out. Now it's quite tight, which is quite a nice thing, but the only thing I would say compared to the rest of the case, the hard drive cases feel a little bit flimsy. You can feel that it's quite thin metal compared to the burliness of the rest of the case. Doesn't really, you know, affect performance that much, to be fair. It was just something, you know, I felt needed to be addressed. So the first bay that comes off has got 3 in, and then the second bay that comes off, again, lean around the back, pull the clip, is 2 bay. And then that leaves you 3 in the bottom. Now, if you remove some screws, there's 4 in the front and 4 underneath. This last bay can come out as well. And if you do that and remove a little plastic bit that's up here, which is a runner, it's just 3 Phillips screws, that gives you access to be able to put a water cooling radiator in the front. And I will show you that in a separate portion of the video, but we'll get the rest of the case done first, and I'll do a water cooling bit separate, because I obviously need to put all the bits in. But something I do want to say is you may want to take your hard drive bays out of here so that you can have that top fan just blowing directly at your graphics card and the rest of the kit with an unimpeded flow. And there's a separate runner down here in front of the power supply, as you can see, and you can basically just clip the other hard drive bay in, so that you can still have, you know, 6 there if you wanted, or, you know, it doesn't really matter, you know, which one. You can do the 2 if you want. But the good thing about this is where this portion can be removed. If you did want to fit a water cooling radiator, you can also fit the hard drive racks back in again. Now, cable routing grommets. There's one at the bottom here for the power supply. You've got a couple here which is quite good for front panel headers, USB cables, that kind of stuff. And then you've got the 4 right the way up the side. So there's plenty of cable routing options. Also, the grommets have got a really nice big lip on them, so it doesn't matter, you can kind of abuse them, and they don't pull straight out. So it's a really nice thing. You have to properly stuff bits in there to be able to get those lips to come off. Now, at the top of the case, there's no cable routing grommet per se, there's just cutouts. Now, we've got a really long one right the way across the top. Got a really long one right the way across here. There's a bit of a cable routing hole over by the hard drive things, and then you've got where you can see I've got the 8-pin CPU power going out the back there. Now, what I was trying to say to you before about the fans in the roof, you have to have them this side of the roof, not the other side, because there's a couple of support bars up there that won't allow you to fit fans. It may be something for a modder to play with at a later date, but you'll see in a minute when we do the water cooling side of things, you don't need to worry about too much about water cooling, because you can get a 60mm thick radiator in here and a set of fans, and it doesn't affect any of the CPU area. So there's a lot of, you know, kind of options for you available there. Back in the old days, being able to remove these hard drive bays would have been because we could have got longer graphics cards in, but most of them are, you know, around this kind of length, maybe a bit shorter now. So you don't really need to worry too much anymore about hard drive length or anything like that. So they've pretty much got most of the bases covered. We've got dust filtering, we've got, you know, customizable airflow. There's again, customizable airflow in the roof, but also by having the roof shut would make it a lot quieter for like nighttime use and stuff like that. Something that I will say, which is something that's literally just come to me as I'm talking to you here now. If you did have roof fans in and you had that open, and say for example, you wanted at night to make it a lot quieter and you didn't want to turn those roof fans off, obviously you could use the front switch, but technically, if you did have them in spinning really slowly so that they were quiet, the air can still escape up here. It's not going to be the most free-flowing of options, but it's not like it's going to be completely closed off altogether. So that is actually something I actually quite like. If you just had a 120 at the back, for example, it's just like a silent exhaust, so you had a couple of exhausts going out, that would cover that, you know, fine. And then when you want a bit more airflow, when you're going to be using the rig, you know, stressing the rig during the day, flick that open, more airflow, heat out the top, lovely jubbly. But obviously you can close it off at night to be quiet. So we've spoken about this side of things quite in depth now. You can see I've got a 2011 board in here. I've also got low profile RAM in here, which you'll see when we move on to the water cooling side of things, is more to kind of point you towards the options that you have available with the radiators and stuff. But we will move on now. I'll get this rig prepared to show you what it's like with water cooling inside it. And then eventually we will move on to a conclusion and wrap up my thoughts on what I think about this case. Righty-heighty, as you can see, we're on to the promised water cooling segment. We are filming on a different day, which is why the old clothing has changed. But anyway, this case is a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing, really, when it comes to water cooling. There's basically, you can get a 240 rad in the top, as I've said already, but because it's sat so far over, we've actually got a 60mm radiator bolted straight into the roof with a set of fans on it here. We put the fans on the bottom so you can see. Memory, it does, because it's sat over, you can get your RAM in there, okay. Now I'm using Vengeance low profile here, but it's not really kind of like mega low profile. I would say I'd try and get it out for you, but I'm never going to be able to get my hand up there to be able to unclip it. Oh, there we go. It's not mega low profile really, and these RAM sticks in total are 31mm tall, and I'd say you could easily have up to, from the basey RAM to the toppy RAM, about 35mm, and you'd still be able to get a radiator in this okay. As you can see, even with the 60mm rad and the set of fans on it, it's still above the CPU socket area, so you'd be able to get a nice CPU block on there and still be able to see it, so that's not too much of a problem. Now in the front, the mounts are slightly different. Now what we've done, if you have a look, you can see you can see two of the rings. Now this set of fans you can fit in the outside if you want, but we did it this way just to show you that there's quite a bit of depth. Another thing was, if you had the fan outside, and this is the reason why I did it, this would be where it would sit if you had an 80mm thick rad. So you could still get an 80mm, 240mm rad in the front, push pull, and it would only come this far in. It gets nowhere into the motherboard. So just to put this into context, we've got a 60mm radiator in the front, in the top, sorry, and another 60mm, 240mm radiator in the front. This is also push-pull. This is an immense amount of cooling. You could quite literally have a 2011 CPU and a couple of graphics cards at a push. You may need to have the fans running slightly higher, but you could have them running, fine. Or if you did just do a CPU, motherboard, and single graphics card loops, you could have the fans running so slow they'd barely be spinning. And also the good thing here is yes, we have got a big radiator in, but if you were to put a dual bay pump reservoir like the new XSPC 750, you could still get that in here as well. Now I've got the barbs at this end, so you would have to get relatively creative with your hosing and stuff to go in. What I would probably end up doing would be a 90° on the bay res, and then maybe a 45 or a straight on air, and then you could have a tiny bit of hose coming from the pump up to the radiator, and then from the other side you could have that coming out and going straight into the CPU block, GPU block. Out of the GPU block it could go straight over to the graphics card, to the other radiator, and then it could come out the other radiator. If you've got an extension and then a 90 and maybe even another 90 or a 45, you have that going straight back to the CPU again. And if you did it all that way, your hosing would be so small and minimal, it would look amazing, and that's in a tiny little case. But the pièce de la résistance, now I do this a lot, I don't think any problem with this, because I just use solid state drives now. Because I've obviously got a home server, I'm lucky enough to be able to run that. I don't put mechanicals in my rigs like this at all, which is why there's no mechanical in Orca. But obviously you guys out there do. So the hard drive bays that we've got, you can only go and fit them in the bottom still. There we go. So you can either have the 2 bay one in there, or you can pick that one out when you actually fit it in there properly. Is it that way around it goes? No, it's definitely this way. Or you can have this one in there. There we go, that one's actually lapsed in. So you can put those in, and if you have a look, it's still relatively below the bottom of your motherboard as well. So you can, if you really wanted to, you could have all the water cooling in there, your single graphics card, and then also have all the hard drive docks in there, but obviously it's going to block off your radiator, so I wouldn't kind of like advise that too much. I'd probably say the sweet spot would be the dual there, because then you've still got a decent amount of airflow from this side. But as far as a mid-tower case is concerned, for water cooling, this thing is amazing. To the point where I would say, if I'd reviewed this last year, because it came real late in the year, I never got a chance to do it before Christmas, before New Year, sorry. If I'd have done this last year, I would have had this in my best of awards, because for a small case like this, to be able to have this much water cooling in it is brilliant. Really, the only thing that lets it down is it is so good with water cooling. I'd want to show off what was inside, and we've got no window. But anyway, so this is going to be the last bit now. We're going to move on. We're going to have a conclusion, recap, as we always do. But this is the water cooling side of things sorted. Right then, peeps. So we'll move on to a conclusion. And I need to remember in my reviews, more so now, that I need to talk about, say the award right at the beginning, rather than getting 10 minutes into my conclusion and then telling you. So, right at the beginning, I'm going to give this the OC3 Gold Award. And it's the first Gold Award that I've given out for a case for 2013. And I'd say this is a good start. Now, one thing I will say is you've seen the water cooling options with this case. If that roof water cooling option wasn't there, and by that I mean the fact that they offset it, it allows you to fit thicker radiators and stuff like that, this would have been a silver award. A very shiny silver, borderline gold. But that water cooling bit in the top was the bit that swung it for this case. Because essentially you can get two 240mm radiators in there, you can get an 80mm thick one in the front. That'll cool pretty much anything. Now the only things that I would say are drawbacks to this are very kind of minor. First one really is the side panel. And by the side panel I mean there is no window option. And the problem with that is if you're going to end up filling this up with water cooling, then I personally would want to be able to see my handiwork and everything that was going on inside. I think it's a bit of a shame that they've not really kind of addressed that point. The window wouldn't be very big, in all honesty, but something even simple could look great on there, and it would be a brilliant addition to the case. I understand that a window panel isn't the type of thing that, because it's being aimed at being like a silent server, kind of that type of style case, real quiet case. That's fair enough, but if you had an option where it was £15, for example, to be able to buy a case after a window panel afterwards, those people that wanted it, I know people that will choose another case because it's got no window. So it seems a bit of an overthought. I think it's something that they should have had offered, even if they were just, you know, limited, or you had to order them from direct from the manufacturer or something like that, just so that the option was there for those people that wanted it. I would be one of the people that would buy it. One of the reasons why I am quite so impressed on this is it's not a huge case, but it does pack a lot of water cooling options. And you'd think that in this day and age, with water cooling being so mainstream now, that would be a regular thing. Some manufacturers seem to think that if it fits a H100, then, you know what I mean, that's the be all and end all. Nobody wants to go any further than that. But the ability to have like I said, a 60mm thick radiator in the roof of this case shows that they are considering and listening to enthusiasts, which is great for a company like this. And I'm really wholeheartedly expecting more from them. I also think the little bars in the roof were a little bit of an oversight. I'm sure they could have got around that another way if they'd really wanted to. But that's it. The only other thing that it niggles me is the fact that there is such a difference between the powder coat on the case and the plastic of the case. Now, you need to remember that I'm properly really critical about very small details like this because of my kind of engineering and motorsport and kind of like mechanical engineering kind of background and stuff like this. This is the type of thing that I pick up on, and it's like it's part of my DNA. So you might look at it and think, I can't see what the problem is. Me, it's just something I couldn't have. To me, I think they probably could have gone for a glossier finished plastic, and I think it would have suited it much better. The gloss and the satin for me is a little bit of a, and that would have been, if it hadn't been for that water cooling radiator, it's the plastic really that would have been the kind of deciding factor for me. For a silver, But obviously we stick that radiator in the roof and bosh, you're straight into a gold award winning territory then. Now a lot of people say to me, oh, there's things wrong with it, how can you give it gold? Well, to be fair guys, I've never seen a perfect case, and I mean I've never ever reviewed a perfect case, because everyone's version of perfect is very different. So we have to give an award as like a generalisation. This is a brilliant case. It definitely contends with, fights with, and beats a lot of the cases that are already out there on the market. So that's you can't. There's a lot more to it than just looking at the features. You have to think about lots of other kind of, you know, lots of other points, and consider a lot more than just, oh well, can't do this. It's got no window. Just because it's got a window, sometimes if the case isn't that great in the first place, it might be a deciding factor for, you know, gold to a silver. But there's so many other things here, you can't really get away from it. But anyway, so plenty of water cooling options, very, very quiet, bitumen in both the side panels and in that panel bit in the roof as well. Plenty of cable options, plenty of hard drive options, plenty of water cooling options. People always say to me, oh, it doesn't support EATX. Now, like the 600T doesn't support EATX, but you can fit a Rampage Extreme motherboard in there, which is EATX. Generally, EATX with most motherboards nowadays just means it's just probably about ½ an inch wider. So your worst case scenario is it's going to ever so slightly overhang your cable routing grommets. It's not really that much of a problem, to be fair. It just means that you may have to put a little bit more thought into things. So when people start stressing about, says it doesn't support it, you just need to kind of calm down a little bit, deep breath, and take a look at things, from a different perspective. They do fit. 9 times out of 10 cases will accept that EATX motherboard. Rampage Extreme and the Maximus Extreme are both EATX, and so is the Rampage Maximus Formula, are both that little bit wider. They will go into the majority of these cases. This is one of them. It will take that, little bit of extra width, and it will probably just get to the edge of where the grommets are, so you wouldn't even be that in too much of a worry there. I can see a lot of people really buying this. This would be like the R3 with me, would be an ideal server case. Type of computer that you leave running all the time, all your hard drives in there. Don't really matter about whatever hard drive whatever hardware you use, but you can fill it up with hard drives. It will be kept cool. You can tune it so it runs quiet. You've obviously got the fan controller on the front, for on-the-fly adjustment if you want it. But it pretty much ticks all the boxes. The only box it doesn't tick, as I said, is the window. So please, Nanoxia, get a window sorted out. This case really needs it. If you do sort a window out, I promise you, you'll see cases like these on all of the forums, full up of water cooling and stuff, because for 100 quid, for what it delivers, it's an absolute billy bargain. To be fair, I mean, I know everyone keeps asking me oh Tom, can you build this, can you build that, can you build this, but I've not got an endless amount of time, and I can't build in every case that I get sent. Once I've done the initial review, putting stuff in a cases, if it's not for me personally or for a competition, I'm not really going to be bothering with it anymore, because I've just not got the time to keep doing this stuff. But I have to admit, I am still in two minds between this and the R4 for my own personal server. And at this present moment in time, I really do like this because of the water cooling options, but I'm not going to be water cooling my server, so it's a bit of a weird one. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I am going to love you and leave you with this. It's the Gold Award winning Nanoxia super silent case. I'll stick the link underneath that you can see it at Quiet PC website. But to be fair, just put Quiet PC into your to Google, and there is a US site and a UK site as well, which is quite handy. But anyway, I will love you and leave you. This is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.